afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. It's a pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network on a crisp fall afternoon in downtown Charlottesville. Our audience is every social platform known to mankind. We are live across Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the only platform that's bringing you long-form content where you, the viewer and listener, can not only learn, not only get entertained, educated, and enlightened, but ask questions and literally dictate the pace and tempo of where the conversation is going. Today's guest, we've been very much looking forward to hosting. It's her second rodeo on the I Love CVille Network, Dr. Meg Bryce on today's program. Judah Whitcower, studio camera. Judah is our director. Dr. Bryce, you are live, and the show is yours. First, thank you for joining us. And second, if you could introduce yourself to anyone and everyone watching today's program.
Sure. Thanks, Jerry, for having me. Thank you, Judah. I'm happy to be back here. So I was here a couple weeks ago. We talked a lot about ACPS and some of the problems that we see there. I've heard from so many parents and teachers since then, and I am humbled to be a voice for them because many of them are not comfortable speaking up for themselves. So, as you said, Jerry, I am a parent. I'm a mother of 4. I have 3 school-age children, 1 toddler, and we were in Albemarle County Public Schools for 4 years and left last year to go to private school.
Concerned parent is how the name template reads. I think it's very applicable. The show is yours. Where would you like to begin?
I thought we could begin talking about accreditation. So schools in Virginia are subject to these standards of accreditation, and it's based on many factors. So it's based on SOL scores, it's based on dropout rate, absenteeism, things like that. Last year, 13 of our currently fully accredited schools are at risk of losing that accreditation. So the accreditation works like their schools are scored at either a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3. And if their performance is rated at a level 3, that's considered below the state standard. And if a school is at level 3 on one or more of those measures, then they are knocked down to what's called accredited with conditions. So we have 13 of our schools that are currently fully accredited, but because this past year they had at least one L3, they are now at risk of losing that. And the biggest offender here for most of them is achievement gaps in math and science. So this was certainly true at Albemarle High School. You published that excellent letter from the math department at Albemarle High School. Those teachers were trying to say something. They were trying to say, this is not working. What we're doing is not working. And their concern is absolutely shown in the SOL scores and the achievement gap that is now putting many of these schools at risk of losing their accreditation.
That's good content right there. That's facts for viewers and listeners watching the program. So where is the disconnect? We have teachers, let's take the letter. The author of the letter is on the show on Friday.
Yeah.
He has since left after 12 years of teaching in public schools for the private sector. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we read the Crozet Gazette article from this past Friday. Clearly, frustration was one of the reasons why the author of the letter left a teaching position in a career that he has an undergrad in and 12 years of experience in, and not yet at the retirement window to collect retirement pay. So that's significant here. Where's the disconnect in your viewpoint?
The teachers are not, their opinions are not being solicited. So I thought the most alarming part of that letter was when he wrote, and I have the quote here, "As teachers, we have been unable to share our experiences and opinions as to how these policies are affecting student learning, comprehension, confidence, and classroom participation with the school board or the division." So these teachers had to write this formal letter to the school board and the superintendent to voice their concerns. Nobody had asked them. So there's this new policy, there's a new grading policy, and not once had the math teachers at one of our 3 high schools been asked how it was going. That's terrible. And do you know the response to that letter from the district?
Please tell us.
The response was to make the teachers attend a Zoom session with a grading guru, because they were told essentially, you must not know how to implement the new equity grading policy. So it's not that it's a bad policy, you just don't know how to use it, which I find so condescending.
Vanessa Parkhill is watching the program. We've dubbed her the Queen of Earlysville. She says she's so excited for today's show. Meg was a breath of fresh air the last time she joined you on the show. Ray Cadell's watching the program. 2 sons in public schools. He became disenchanted. His family with public schools put his youngest daughter in private school where she graduated from Covenant. He has highlighted on previous shows $250,000 plus spent in tuition at Covenant School over the course of his daughter's lifetime. He says, would I love that money now? Sure. But he says, I undoubtedly did the right thing putting my daughter in private school. Thank you, Ray, for watching the program. You got a couple of media outlets watching the show as we speak. Let's talk about this is one of the things that really has taken me back. You, probably like me, have heard from a ton of teachers.
Yeah.
The teachers are willing to offer us background perspective to help shape the conversation and what needs to be highlighted for the community. The common denominator, nearly 50 of them for us, is the fear of speaking on the record because of retribution from Dr. Matthew Haas's, air quotes, cabinet.
Yeah.
Cabinet. That's how he looks at his team members of authority that are right under him. I guess you would call them lieutenants. I was taken aback by that.
I've heard the administration referred to as vindictive.
Explain.
That's how teachers feel, that they're vindictive. And you mentioned on the show yesterday that these teachers have never been in more of a position of power, and I agree with you. I mean, there's a teacher shortage. How could they possibly be at fear of losing their jobs? But they are, because they feel that that's how far this administration would go to get them out. Anybody who's not fully on board with their agenda.
This is a tough question. Is the segue to that collective bargaining and unionization? Charlottesville City Schools have done this. I know this is a hot topic here.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that would solve these problems. And I think a lot of the teachers that I have heard from would not be in favor of that. I know a lot are. I think that there are ways to engage teachers. So, for example, Bill, who left Albemarle High School, he wasn't teaching because of the great pay, and he probably wouldn't have stayed if he got a raise. People stay in jobs because, yes, they need a living wage, but also people stay in jobs because they like their boss, because they like their coworkers, because they feel appreciated and they feel that they're doing good work. If you hinder all of that, there's no reason to stay. They're not getting paid enough to stay if nobody's listening to their concerns and if they don't feel that they can do the work that they so want to do. The people who are teaching in schools right now are there because they love teaching. They're willing to make less money because they so believe in what they're doing. And if we tie their hands with these abysmal grading policies, they can't do what they're there to do. And just so people know, when we talk about the grading policies, what that means in real life, I'm not exaggerating, there are no deadlines, homework is not graded, students have unlimited retakes of tests, and the minimum grade that a teacher can give is a 50. Even if a student didn't turn something in. So I heard a teacher say that the principal came to him and said, hey, I see that this student's failing. You really can't fail this student. And the teacher was like, well, he hasn't turned anything in all quarter, so what grade would you like me to give? I have nothing to grade. But he was not allowed to fail the student.
Carmel Greer giving you some props right now, live on all social
Carmel.
platforms. Michael Buchensky, Sarah Hill Buchensky, we'll get to your comments in a matter of moments. The letter, will you pronounce Bill's last name for me again, Judah?
You're going to have to learn this before Friday.
I know, Friday show. Judah is a phonetics expert here. Phonetics, see, there you go. He's already correcting me again.
I believe it's Munkachi.
Okay, thank you, Judah. Bill, I promise you I will ask you this on Friday's show when you come on here. The letter took me aback. The letter reminded me, to use the sports analogy, of everyone gets a trophy mentality.
Right.
And the letter I found demoralizing because I feel like it fosters a system of mediocrity. And I feel like it fosters a system that once students matriculate through public schools in this kind of educational setting or infrastructure or format where, Meg, there's grading is kind of inconsequential, deadlines are inconsequential, and accountability is inconsequential. The stark reality is when they get to college or the real world, this is not how life operates. And I'll put it in perspective from a mom who asked me to relay her firsthand perspective with her daughter, begged me not to utilize her name. I'm a man of my word. I will not utilize her name. Her daughter is in 4th grade in Covenant School. Is gone from 3rd grade in Albemarle County Public Schools. She asked me not to use which elementary because of identification, to 4th grade at Covenant. And she said, my daughter right now is struggling with the homework. She went from a setting where there wasn't any homework to a setting where there is. She's asked to bypass PE so she can utilize that time as a second study hall. My husband and I realized that there was going to be a transition difficulty with our daughter going from public school to private school, but we never anticipated this transition difficulty how it is now. She says Covenant's been fantastic with offering support to her daughter, but said it's undoubtedly been a difficult adjustment from the public school setting to the private school setting. I put this in the story we did on ilovecville.com. And you know this better than, you have kids in private school.
Right.
Okay? They're held accountable for performance.
Yeah.
I mean, are we not creating this like educational gap of kids that are in this systematic lack of accountability, public school, versus one that is undoubtedly holding people accountable for performance?
It's terrible. So the real consequences of this are that the families who can will either take their kids elsewhere, or they will supplement their public education with other resources. So I know families with elementary age children who have private tutors in addition to having their kids in public school. They have private tutors for writing, for grammar, for math. So but they all have the same low standards, right? So what happens is that the families who can are still going to educate their children well. And the families who can't are going to be stuck with the subpar education from ACPS. And it's just going to further the divide that we already see. The school district is not serving the people that it says it is. It's a great injustice.
Why is this happening? I've heard Dr. Haas, I won't identify who said this. Perhaps it's a savior complex?
Yeah.
For the superintendent here?
Yeah, I think so.
A savior complex?
Yeah.
How is this systematic failure going from the top of the professional totem pole down to the front lines, which is the teachers?
I think there is just a real disconnect there. And I've heard this from parents who are frustrated that Matt Haas doesn't listen to them, and I especially hear it from teachers who are frustrated. And the teachers are, they are just fed up.
I can't blame them.
With the equity grading.
Yeah.
It is impossible for them. So there are also no prerequisites for any courses. So a calculus teacher could have somebody taking calculus who never took pre-calculus. How do you do that? How do you teach like that? So it's lowered academic standards overall, and it has also hindered the teacher's ability to cover the curriculum that they're tasked with. and in a timely manner. They can't possibly, because now a calculus teacher is teaching calculus and pre-calculus.
I want to highlight the term equity grading. The word grading by nature is choosing a way to allocate a letter based on performance. The word equity by nature is even playing field or fair for all. So combining words like equity and grading and utilizing them in the same phrase like ACPS is doing is the definition of an oxymoron. Parting is such sweet sorrow, an oxymoron. Equity, grading, an oxymoron. Judah made the point, and I respect this man's opinion tremendously, 10 plus years of working alongside each other, Judah Wickhauer and I, that this is a byproduct of the pandemic where leadership realized that students learning remotely in quarantine in the coat closet, their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, they had to put this system in place to help bridge the gap of the kids that were able to learn correctly or at a different clip, a more efficient clip, if you may, during the pandemic, versus those that were maybe forgotten, depending on socioeconomic status, one-parent households, whatever it may be. There's
Parent
a lot
has
of
to be at work all day, and you park a third grader in front of a laptop and just hope that they stay there and listen to their teacher.
As Professor Brad Wilcox has taught me, a lot of sociological factors can go into a household. Okay, so here's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with this here. The idea on paper, I don't think it made sense, but I can see how leadership thought it might have been the right path coming out of COVID and quarantine and learning online.
I agree with it. I don't think it makes sense.
I don't think it makes sense.
They ought to know better.
Right. Okay. I'm trying to guess where I'm trying to go with this is kind of like try to understand what their thinking was. Because these are professionals. You know, well-credentialed, educated professionals here.
Right. Who were dead wrong.
Who are dead wrong. Okay, we're in 100% agreement, you and I here. But do you see, help me understand, or let's walk through, conversate what the thinking could have been.
You and Judah talked about this yesterday, that everybody knows that kids need structure. They need structure, they need clear expectations, and coming out of COVID, for some reason, everybody thought, well, they don't need that now. What they really need now is no rules, no expectations.
Hand-holding.
Lot of hand-holding. That was insane.
Insane.
And it was bound to be a difficult transition, right? From virtual school, hybrid, all that mess, it was bound to be a difficult transition getting back into the classroom full time. But people needed to put their big girl panties on and do it, and not try to, make it so much easier for kids that then they're not challenged and they don't feel the need to go to school. Another measure of another goal that schools need to meet to get accreditation is keeping kids in school. So chronic absenteeism is something that is measured, and it has become a huge issue since COVID. And it's one of the issues that could cause quite a number of schools to lose their accreditation. It's a problem across the board, but it's an especially big problem for minority populations. So Black and Hispanic students are chronically absent about 25% of the time. So let me rephrase that. Their chronic absentee rate is about 25%, which means that they are missing 10% or more of school. 25% of those children are missing 10% or more of the school year. Economically disadvantaged children are at about a 30% chronic absenteeism rate. So 30% of those children are missing 10% or more of their school year. Teachers have been told that administrators would be cracking down on chronic absenteeism, perhaps under threat from the Youngkin administration, but they haven't seen that in practice yet. One teacher told me that they've had a student miss 5 straight weeks of class. And I know that this is a problem at Western, but it's a huge problem at Monticello and Albemarle. The chronic absenteeism, and then even kids who are in the building but not going to class. I mean, like dozens of kids hanging out in the bathroom, as we read in Lisa Martin's
Crow's Neck Gazette story. Right,
her great article. So, this is what happens when you don't have rules. Kids will rise to your low expectations.
Well said, well said. We're going to get to solutions. We're solutions-oriented individuals. We'll highlight Abby Dahlquist, giving you some props right now. Judy
Thanks,
Powers Bernhardt, Carmel
Thanks.
Greer, giving you some props. 3 media outlets watching the program. Kelly Jackson is watching the show. She's on tomorrow's program. She has a daughter at St. Anne's who also was at Covenant, and a daughter at the Monticello High School. So she's got a lot of valuable perspective to offer. Peter Sweeney, hello. Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett. Neil Williamson, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, has this question, very pointed one for Dr. Bryce. What is the school board's role in these decisions, solutions, and problems?
What do I think their role should be, or what? I guess I don't understand the question.
How is the school board, in your opinion, currently managing this, and how should they be managing this?
They're not. So
Okay.
I think the school board's role is to vote on policies. They have voted. This school board has been in place to implement some really bad policies. So equity grading is just one of those. And they've dropped the ball. They are focusing on equity at the cost of everything else. And
props.
In the process, they're not making anything more equitable.
Dude,
They're doing the reverse.
Yeah. Isn't it so obvious?
It's so obvious. And you know what? When you look at the SOL scores, I've actually been told that they're worse than they seem.
What does that mean? How could that be?
2 or 3 years ago, you could have a 6th grader at Henley sign up for Math 7. So
Okay.
a 6th grader taking like 7th grade math. That 6th grader would take the 7th grade SOL because they were learning 7th grade content. So they would take the 7th grade SOL. Last year, a 6th grader at Henley would have signed up for Math 7. Parents went to back to school night and noticed that the class was listed as Math 6 compacted. So parents reached out to teachers and administration and said, what is this? You know, I signed my kid up for Math 7. What is this Math 6 compacted? And even the teacher was surprised and said, yeah, I hadn't seen that, but I don't know why the name was changed, but rest assured it's the same content. I'm still teaching Math 7. And parents found that, yes, indeed, the students were still learning the Math 7 content. And then later in the year, children came home and told their parents, I guess we're reviewing Math 6 stuff because we're taking the 6th grade SOL. So parents feel that their children were used for a score. One parent said to me, my child was used for a test score. My child and all of the other 6th graders in Math 7 took a Math 6 SOL. The administration snuck in a name change to cover themselves and never communicated the change to parents.
What do you call that behavior?
I'd call that lying.
Disingenuous at best.
And
do you say that? You agree?
Oh, yeah. This parent said the dishonesty is what disappoints me the most.
This comment comes in via DM. I will respect your anonymity. Jerry, we were told our son was a behavior problem at a local elementary school. The district you will represent, Jerry, if elected. We tried to tell them and Dr. Haas that he was bored and acting out because he was not challenged and the class was so insecure. The administration was insecure. The principal basically told us he was not that smart. We got our son tested and now he is thriving at the Peabody School. He now has more diversity in his classroom. He is challenged and happy and growing. So many of our private schools have great financial aid packages for Black and brown students. Please consider the private schools, even if you do not have the financial resources. She also highlights the need for us to emphasize a serious investment in mental health and social support within ACPS that is clearly not happening right now. Do you want to touch on that at all? And then multiple people are asking your take on the Crozet Gazette article. I'll share the Crozet Gazette article on all the feeds as Dr. Bryce offers her take on the comment that just came in.
That's absolutely true. The private schools in the area, a lot of them pride themselves on the financial aid packages that they have. So if you are interested, go take a look, apply, please. And as far as investing in mental health resources, I agree with that. But I think that there's a limit to what we can expect schools to offer. And ultimately, this comes down to, an understanding of the role of schools. I personally do not believe that schools can or should even attempt to fix all the ills of society. I don't think it's possible, and I don't think, there's no amount of money that you could put into public schools to expect them to solve the evil of racism. Schools can't do that. That has to happen at home. It has to happen in your family, in your community, in your church, whatever. So we can't expect schools to solve a mental health crisis. We should absolutely have resources there, but I think that our school board and our district, they're trying to, or they say that they're trying to do that, and I think it's just exacerbating a problem.
You're getting props from friends. Catherine, Peters Finn, Megan, Corving. There's 5 states watching the program literally as we speak right now. The Crozet Gazette article I've shared on 15 Facebook pages, across Twitter, YouTube, and every social platform. Open-ended question first. Kim Martin's Crozet Gazette article titled Albemarle High School Teachers Lament Chaotic Year. I read this article on Friday afternoon. Shared it with my wife, read the article a second time, because the first time I read it, Dr. Bryce, I was in disbelief. Read it a second time, and I equated it to like Michelle Pfeiffer and Dangerous Minds, the movie. My wife then shared it with her mom, my mother-in-law. They were also in disbelief. Your take from this article?
I wouldn't say I was in disbelief, but it was chilling to read it. I had heard about problems like this, but hadn't seen it told like this. Lisa does really great reporting on our schools, and we're lucky to have her doing the job that she does so well. I wouldn't have believed that article if I hadn't heard from so many people about how bad things were at some of our schools. After the article, I was sent a video that a student took on a bus, an Albemarle High School bus, of one student, a boy, beating up a girl on the bus. And I would not make the video public, but these things are happening, and it's frightening to think. And just like these math teachers from that high school reached out and said, this isn't working. They're desperate for some support in the schools. We need the SROs back in the school. We need somebody to help the teachers get kids in the classroom and get them in order so that they can do their job.
SROs, an acronym for School Resource Officers. Greene County in the news earlier this week. School resource officers prioritize in Greene County. School resource officers not prioritized in ACPS and Charlottesville City Schools. We're talking Albemarle County Public Schools now here.
Did we talk about the survey on SROs?
We should talk about that. When I throw that, we did not.
Okay.
In fact, we didn't really touch on SROs a lot last time. I will highlight this. Choosing my words carefully here. This show reaches a lot of people. The Albemarle County Police Department and the Charlottesville Police Department have reached out to us through leaders within the department, asking us to explain the importance of SROs to the community. Most recently, this was done by the CPD. The CPD has had difficulty reaching the high school in these hoaxing incidences.
Right.
Hoaxing incidences are basically fake, are school shootings that are fake, that students are putting on social media through disguised ISP addresses. When bomb threats were happening when Dr. Bryce and I were in school, it was done through a phone call. People were disguising their voice and they were calling the principal's office. Kids are so sophisticated now that they're utilizing internet service providers in disguised fashion to terribly call in mass shootings or bomb threats. Charlottesville Police Department connected with us and said, Jerry, please let the community know that we do not have a direct line in the schools anymore. for when these threats happen. And as a result, when those threats happen, Dr. Bryce, they have to send the entire weight of the CPD to the school.
Terrifying everybody.
Terrifying everyone. We're talking about men and women with CPD in full garb, uniform, equipment, heavy artillery. I don't know the exact terminology here, but you get my point here. Terrifying everyone in the school. And they're like, look, this isn't our fault, the CPD is saying, because we have to take this as if it was a legitimate threat, because we don't have the SRO in the hallway anymore that we can directly contact and say, hey, what's going on? One question I have that I'd like to get a direct answer for is, why can't there be a direct line with, say, the principal's office about this? That would then keep the entire CPD or ACPD from going to the schools? I would like that answer, but that's the predicament we're in with law enforcement. Why don't we go open-ended first for you to go anywhere you want on SROs, and then we'll take a deep dive on the topic.
So back in 2020, there was a survey distributed to parents and students, I think also to teachers, about SROs. And like all the other surveys, ACPS did the opposite of what the survey results indicated. So they were asking people, do you like SROs? Do you want to have them in the school? And about 75% of people said that they'd like to keep them in the school. Some people felt very strongly about it. I want to say maybe 25% felt very strongly about keeping them. I'm totally winging it here. And maybe 50% were like, yeah, we should keep them, but they didn't feel strongly about it. But still, 75% were like, yeah, we should keep them. And only 25% wanted to get rid of them. And ACPS got rid of them. I had one teacher tell me, now we have unarmed safety officers who are supposed to, quote, prevent any violence by having strong relationships with students.
Unarmed safety officers are synonymous with equitable grading.
Exactly.
Oxymorons.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
So, this is frustrating. Not everybody, but the majority of people want those back in schools. And I bet if they distributed that survey now, that 75% would jump up.
I asked you this question last time. I'm going to ask it to you one other time. What is the point of surveys if the results aren't going to be considered? It's evidently a pomp and circumstance. Is the phrase dog and pony show? Is that what the phrase is? I think I mentioned this last time, and you and I were both trying to figure out what the phrase was.
Yeah, I don't know if it's dog. Is it dog and pony or horse and pony?
Horse and pony. Maybe it's horse and pony.
You get it.
The pomp and circumstance. What is the point of the survey? Sutherland.
Well, because they have this whole like community engagement committee or initiative or something. So they have to do something to make it look like they're trying to engage the community, and then they just hope that you don't notice that they ignored the community after engaging them. It's a lot of it's really quite insulting because they ask teachers what they want, and then they essentially say, yeah, we know better. Okay. So we're going to do the opposite. They ask parents what they want, like Journey Middle School. Actually, we want to keep the name. Nah, we know better. So, why are they even asking?
Very pointed question for you. Very pointed. Okay. There is a extremely organized vocal minority in Charlottesville City and Albemarle County. I do not underestimate this vocal minority.
No, I don't either.
They are motivated, galvanized, organized, strategized, whatever eyes you want to call it, they are. But they are the vocal minority. Some would call them socialists. Some would call them the radical left. Okay? This is me talking. Maybe you agree. Okay? Some would call them socialists. Some would call them the radical left. They seem to be dictating the pace and tempo a lot of what's happening in the community. This is the group that is screaming at the top of Carter's Mountain to defund the police in Charlottesville City. This is the group that is screaming at the top of Carter's Mountain to get the SROs out of the schools. This is the group that is screaming at the top of Carter's Mountain to vehemently oppose a lot of the policies that Youngkin is trying to administer with public schools. Is it this group, whatever we want to call them, that is driving the narrative locally?
I think they're driving the narrative, but I think that you give them too much credit if you think that they're the reason the school board and the superintendent function the way that they do. Okay. Because the school board and the superintendent they will do what they think is best, regardless of what parents are saying.
So that's
whether it's
terrifying.
a vocal minority or a majority.
Okay, so that's terrifying. Those are elements or characteristics of dictatorship.
Yeah. But, we voted them in. That's the problem. We voted them in.
How many
not
ran
us.
unopposed?
Right. So that's the thing. There is this, I agree with you, an incredibly vocal minority that is driving the conversation, driving the narrative. That's why other people need to get loud. You've got to get loud. And I get it that you don't want to put your name out there. And it's easy for me to do this now because I don't have kids in public school anymore. So if I'm burning bridges, and I hope I'm not, but if I am, it's not going to affect my children. So I completely understand the people who don't want to speak up and don't want their name out there, but at a certain point, you're going to have to. At a certain point, you've got to do that for your kids because nothing's going to change unless you do.
All right, very straightforward question. Okay, very straightforward. I've said this, I'll say it again, I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. I think I am sitting across the table from what would be a phenomenal Albemarle County school board candidate. I swear to God.
Thank you.
I will continue to say this. Have you given this some thought? And is the challenge mentally that you have to get over the fact that your kids are in private schools now and you're wondering whether that will impact how the community responds to you running for a school board position that is public school related?
Absolutely. I think that would be a hurdle. And that would be a fair question, why...
Question you would have to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also a motivation. Because, and that's why I'm here now. I think it's really important for people who have gone elsewhere, people who have put their kids in private school or who have chosen to homeschool. As one friend called it, homeschooling under duress. She's like, I didn't want to do this. This is under duress because I don't have a better choice. So I think it is imperative that those of us who have gone elsewhere stay involved. So, to your question of whether I think having my kids in private school would be a strike against me or a hurdle. Yes, I think it's a hurdle, but it's also, I guess, not an excuse.
Okay, so
not to be involved.
You're helping me, and my wife, who is the rock of our family, has offered similar perspective. I'll give firsthand perspective of what we're going through now. Our son is a rising kindergartner. We're doing the circuit tour of the schools. Guys and gals that are watching this program, moms and dads that are watching this program, the circuit tour is you get to tour these schools and get a feel where you want your kid to go to. And I got to be straightforward. Private school, you're making decisions by January 1 of where your kid is going in September. So you're doing these decisions 9 months in advance. I'll be straightforward here. I'm often straightforward on the show. We had phenomenal experience at Charlottesville Catholic with the tour. Phenomenal experience at St. Anne's with the tour. We're doing Covenant the following week. Okay? We have tried 3 different times, my wife twice and me once, to schedule just a basic meet and greet at our public school elementary that is 3.5 miles from our house. And we have not even gotten a return phone call or an opportunity to meet and greet with anyone. And it's my wife with a different name on social media that's doing the scheduling. So it cannot be tied to this show. It cannot just be tied to I Love CVille. Strategically done with a different name.
Right. That's disappointing because that had not been my experience in our local public school. I always had good experiences with our school itself. My only complaint has been with the district, not the local school. So that's disappointing that that's been your experience. But I can say as a mother of kids in private school, one of the things that I love is that kids always get classroom jobs and they're very excited about who's the door holder or things like that. And
we saw that.
Right. Yeah. The best job, and public schools do that too. The best job is the greeter because they get to greet the kids who are visiting the school as prospective students. And it's really sweet to see them embrace that responsibility of greeting somebody and saying, hello, my name is Rosie, welcome. And I agree, they do a wonderful job of it.
We'll get to solutions here. We have a hard stop, but we say 1:35?
Yeah.
1:35. So we have 22 minutes left here. So you're helping here. So how is the take the Board of Supervisors. Diantha McKeel, Board of Supervisor, ran unopposed. Supervisor Ned Galloway ran unopposed. McKeel is Jack Jewett. Ned Galloway's Rio District. And Jim Andrews ran unopposed in the Samuel Miller District. Our parents, more parents than ever have their kids in private schools. Mm-hmm. Are parents hesitant to get engaged with a public office scenario because perhaps their kids are in private schools? School board potentially so. Board of Supervisors, I think so. What is the...
Well, people are
what's the response to that?
People are scared for their businesses, too. I know people who won't put their name out there because...
See, I'm not scared about that.
They're scared that they'll lose their business. I think that we have to, again, people have got to get loud. You got to tear the Band-Aid off and put yourself out there. Otherwise, things are never going to change. And part of that is paying attention. There's a school board meeting tomorrow night. I wanted to tell people a little bit about that. So
Please.
The school board meeting is tomorrow, Thursday at 6:30 at the Albemarle County office building. So that's on 401 McIntyre Road. Public comment is from 7 to 7:30. You do have to sign up for public comment. You have to sign in with the clerk, and you can sign up for a public comment until 3:30 tomorrow. So please, if you're concerned about any of the things that we've been discussing, sign up to go speak at the school board meeting. If you can't attend in person, you can live stream it. And as always, you can email your school board members. You can email the whole school board at schoolboard@k12albemarle.org. Go ahead and shoot them an email and tell them your thoughts. I know that they will appreciate it.
What are your thoughts on this question? Guys, we'll get to as many comments as humanly possible. I promise. We do have a hard stop at 1:35 here. What do you make to the question that's coming on the feed where it's a significant amount of people are watching that are saying the horses that Bill McChesney, for example, the horses that I like to back, he referenced Bellamy Brown, do not end up crossing the finish line first. On last show, you described yourself as a little C conservative. Mm-hmm. What do you make of the monopoly that is the Democratic Party in the county of Albemarle and the city of Charlottesville? And that monopoly, I would even say it's the Democratic Party of the John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan era. It's a Democratic Party that is completely different now than it was when you and I would imagine we're roughly the same age. You don't have to obviously tell me your age, but when we were growing up, it's a completely different party.
It is. I think that that party, the same types of people who are the loud minority, have done a really smart job of shaming anybody with conservative views. So people are scared to speak up if they don't approve of equity grading for fear that they'll be called a bigot. I've heard teachers tell me that they're pushed to hang up inclusivity posters in their classrooms, and they're even provided posters by the district or given a list of names of people that they can choose from to hang up on their walls. And the posters are all of the same ideological bent. It's all very progressive liberals that they're supposed to hang up on their walls. So inclusivity goes both ways. It's not just about color. It's not just about socioeconomic status. It's also about ideology. So if we're being inclusive, you have to be inclusive of other ideologies as well. I cringe to think what would happen to a teacher if she put up a poster of a conservative on her wall. She'd probably be reported to district. So teachers have serious concerns with how the school board and the district as a whole are promoting political agendas that have nothing to do with schools and nothing to do with students. And, the teachers are just kind of being thrown into it. And unfortunately, I think it's all an effect of conservatives being shamed into silence.
So let's talk solutions, and we'll get to comments. First, this is a good question from Sarah Hill Buchensky watching in the Crozet area. She said, someone mentioned in the comments on yesterday's program that there's a clause in the teachers' contracts that says they are not allowed to speak to the media. Does anyone know if this is true? I don't know if that's true. Do you?
I don't know. I would hope that that's not true. I would think that that's not true.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I do know we are...
Teacher friends, if you're listening, shoot me a quick text and tell me.
Teacher friends, please. We are in correspondence. Judah, was the number somewhere between 45 and 49 teachers in off-the-record capacity, and they have all insisted on anonymity for fear of retribution from Dr. Haas's administration.
Yep.
I mean, that right there is another indication of dictatorship here. Neil Williamson has said, for what it's worth, two current Board of Supervisor members, Diantha McKeel and Ned Galloway, were former school board members. For the sake of solutions, and we're solutions-oriented people, what are the solutions to solving what is undoubtedly a generational crisis upon us in Albemarle County?
Well, first of all, concerned parents, but not just parents, concerned adults, concerned taxpayers need to get involved. You highlighted yesterday that education constitutes, 59% of Albemarle County's budget. So if you're paying taxes here, you should also be paying attention to what's going on in schools, because these schools are raising the next generation of voters and leaders. And what I would really like to see is some metrics. Let these new policies that the school board and the superintendent are putting into place, how are they measuring their success? And at what point will they decide whether or not they've been a success? So are we only looking at SOL scores? Are we looking at mental health measures? How are they measuring whether equity grading is working? Because when teachers tried to say it wasn't working, the teachers were told, essentially, you're not equity grading enough. You're not doing it right. So
whatever that means.
Right. What are the metrics here?
Yeah.
How do we know if it's working or not? And how long are you giving it? Do you give it 1 year? Do you give it 2 years? There's got to be a point at which they can admit defeat and say, you know what, this is not working. We need to change course. I don't know that that is the case, that ever will be a case. One teacher said to me, in ACPS, once a program is started, it's nearly impossible to eliminate, even when data and evidence do not support its existence. And that's what I fear. So I think we need to really push them to say, hey, how are you determining the success of this? And what's your deadline? When can we expect to see some of these amazing results?
God, there's so many comments here, guys. I'm going to try to get to as many of these as humanly possible. Hard stop in 14 minutes. Hard stop in 14 minutes. Where do I even begin?
Hey, can
here?
I tell people something fun that
Please,
I learned?
Please.
In high schools, they now have 40 minutes every day of remediation time. It's built-in remediation time for catch-up, makeup, test retakes, all of that stuff. It's separate from other classes, separate from lunch. So all of these students are behind, right? Everybody acknowledges learning loss from COVID. And now we're setting aside 40 minutes a day for kids to do all of the stuff that we told them they didn't have to do. It's insane. And so I asked, well, what happens if a student actually is not behind? What if they don't have any makeup work to do? What if they don't want to retake a test? What does that student do? And I was told, they play video games, they use the time like a study hall, they wander the building unaccounted for, they socialize with friends. So this remediation time started last year, it has continued into this year, and it's expected to continue into the future. Teachers are telling the district, if this continues, we need to get rid of the freshman seminar, but nobody believes that they will get rid of the freshman seminar because apparently that is Matt Haas's baby, and he will not get rid of it. The freshman seminar is a whole other thing.
I want to throw potential solutions for the teachers that are watching the show. The teachers, you guys have the power, and you have more leverage than you've ever had in a long time in Albemarle County Public Schools because there's a massive shortage of teachers. And slightly, the only point I think we slightly disagree on here is the power of collective bargaining for the teachers. I think teachers, if you guys organize and galvanize, and it doesn't even have to be through an official union, but you just said 2 Mondays from now, we're going to not show up for school. We're literally not going to show up for school, Albemarle County Public School teachers. We're not going to show up for school 2 Mondays from now. The kids are going to get there, we're not going to show up for school, and then Dr. Matthew Haas and his administration are going to have to figure out what to do with the kids on that particular Monday. And you said, we're not going to show up until you guys do this, this, and that. We're all going to take, and you don't even have to get ballsy about this, we're all going to take a sick day on the same day. Let's all take a vacation day or a sick day on the same day. COVID's rampant. Maybe you got the pandemic, you got an exposure, and you want to keep kids healthy and don't expose them to pandemic. Take a sick day on the same day, and let's see what happens when Dr. Matthew Haas is going to run a school system with thousands of students without any teachers. Then you have leverage and can get stuff done. Another opportunity to get things figured out, I think, could happen at the Board of Supervisors level. What if your elected Board of Supervisors choose to hold the $200+ million that get funded from the county to the school system in escrow account and not give the money to the school system until the bus driver shortage is figured out and until performance scores are met? Like, you run it like a business. You want this money from the board of directors, you got to show us that the KPIs, the key performance indicators, are on point and improving, and you can get kids to school on time and home on time. Those are some solutions for you guys, teachers. I'm going to throw school voucher program to you. Anywhere you want to go on school voucher program before I ask some pointed questions. Hard stop at 11 minutes.
Yeah, sure. As I said a couple weeks ago, I don't know the ins and outs of the voucher program. I am always in favor of more parental choice, more parental awareness. You all were talking yesterday about, it's $18,000 per pupil that Albemarle County spends right now. And what I like about vouchers is that parents could use that elsewhere. What I like about vouchers is that it would hold schools more accountable for providing a quality education. And what I like about vouchers is that it could actually lead to private schools being more diverse. I think that would be a great thing. But I can't claim to know the intricacies of how it would work economically.
Pitfalls or collateral damage of vouchers. Off the back of the napkin, two people having a conversation here with quite a few people watching here.
Right.
But pitfalls that you've seen.
Pitfalls of the voucher program?
Yeah.
Well, I think the argument against it is that it takes money away from public schools, but if the counter argument is, well, what do you need my money for if you're not educating my kid?
I think another unfortunate counter argument, no, I take that words back. I'm rephrasing these words so nothing can be taken out of context. I think another collateral damage of the voucher program is creating public school epicenters of socioeconomic students and families on the margin. I mean, because there's still going to be a delta between the voucher and the tuition. And even if
not
there's...
necessarily. I would love to see... I have a friend who has a real passion for starting an independent school. She would love to start an independent school that's affordable.
What'd you make of our Redfield school scenario yesterday? Wintergreen and Rockledge Drive.
It gave me kind of an anxiety attack because it threw me back to virtual school and the pod that I had for my kids during virtual school, which was the best that I could do for them at the time, but it was such a hot mess. And I was so happy when my kids could and they were so happy when they could get back into a school building and be with teachers. So I'm going to stay away from your Redfields Community School, but other people who are not scarred by memories of pods are totally welcome to try that.
The Cliff Notes version of yesterday's show was, if the voucher program becomes a reality, parents are given $18,000, as you said, for the value of a public school education and ACPS. What if 10 kids on one street were organized by one parent? They took $180,000, 18 times 10. They hired 2 teachers, paid them $70,000 each. That's a raise on what the teachers are making. $140,000 in overhead, maybe an extra 15 or 20 for insurance and curriculum infrastructure. That leaves some financial margin over there, some net profit for the organizer, and the kids would rotate down the Rockledge Drive School in Redfields. You combine 2 streets for economies of scale, and then you get even more margin. Callie Jackson somewhere is licking her chops over this idea. She has 600 employees and 17 Panera Breads.
Yeah. I wonder my guess is that with a voucher program, you're not getting the same amount given to kids in public school. My guess is that you would not get $18,000 per child. I mean, that's more than a covenant tuition. There's no way you're getting that much from the government.
In the elementary school.
In the elementary school. Sure.
Yeah. And that doesn't include incidentals.
That's true. But and it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds in Arizona, how their voucher program works.
Because Youngkin's pushing this.
Yeah.
How about this from Steve Harvey?
Hi, Steve.
He's running for Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
When is Dr. Bryce announcing her candidacy for school board? Are you doing that now on the show?
I am not.
You are not doing it?
I am not.
Okay.
My district, unfortunately, is not up for a few years. Graham Page is my school board representative, and he just won re-election against Randy Zackerson, a great write-in candidate.
How do we hold the school board accountable? Multiple people asking that question. Besides speaking out at meetings.
Just keep emailing them and then vote them out when you feel they're not representing you.
Catherine Lochner watched the program. She ran for Albemarle County School Board. Catherine, we love when you watch the show. She says it's important to emphasize that you would not get the local dollars in your voucher program, only the state portion. So she's offering some clarity here. She's saying of that 18,000, 4 would go to the parents.
Okay. Yeah.
4K would go. Only 4.
Yeah.
So there's a hell of a delta, hell of a delta with 4,000 in the tuitions at private schools.
Then hopefully
Thank you, Catherine.
with a voucher program, hopefully some industrious people will start independent schools that are much less expensive so that people could use that money.
Educational entrepreneurs.
Right.
I think educational entrepreneurs would undoubtedly happen. In fact, friend of the program, friend of yours at church, Anwar and Laura Allen of the shortbread company, Allen Scottish Shortbreads. Yeah. They pursued an educational entrepreneur endeavor. I don't believe it's active anymore, but they pursued that endeavor. We have a hard stop of 4.5 minutes here. I want to get out as much information that we haven't covered so far. Yeah. Show is yours. Anywhere you want to go.
Let's talk about some items on the agenda for the school board meeting. All right. Middle school advisory is on the agenda. A revised high school academic schedule is on the agenda. A big high school redesign update is on the agenda. The high school redesign update is a great example of why people need to pay attention now. I think a lot of people might look at what's going on now, like with equity grading and all of the policies that they don't like, and think, well, we lost this, there's no point in tuning in now. That's not the case. You've got to tune in now to keep them from instituting policies now that will start 5 years from now. So the high school redesign, that project started way back in 2015, and it's supposed to be implemented this coming fall. So if we had all been paying attention in 2015, we could have stopped this slow-moving train. So please start tuning in now. Okay, so there's a high school redesign update. That affects the academies, and the academies, we don't really have time to go into the academies in detail, but the academies had been a really successful endeavor in the district. People loved the academies. And then they stopped requiring applications. There were no prerequisites for the academies. Anybody could get in. So now the standards of the academies has totally fallen, and not shockingly, people don't love them as much anymore. So pay attention to the high school redesign that they're proposing. They're also discussing something about a high school academic schedule, and they took a survey about this, another survey. And one of the things they asked on the survey was about Matt Haas's beloved freshman seminar, and 65% of students said that it was unimportant. Only 13% said that it was very important. In the very next paragraph of this agenda item for the school board meeting, it said, so to further investigate this proposal, a committee of teachers, administrators, and counselors was convened. Like, investigate what? People just said they didn't want it. What are you doing?
Right.
So,
and how much does it cost?
Right. How much does it cost? And how much time does it take out of the school day?
That's opportunity cost.
90 minutes. Freshman seminar is 90 minutes every other day. That is a huge chunk of time when kids who are not learning math and history and writing and science. And one teacher called the freshman seminar a glorified study hall with some built-in social justice warrior training. Pretty frank way to describe it. But that's 90 minutes every other day is how kids are spending this. So that's an item for the school board meeting. Please speak up.
You're on fire. We're actually on time here. We have about 74 seconds left. I'd like to get a final word in, but I want to give you any final words anywhere you want to go. When you guys see Dr. Bryce around town, I want you to stop her and thank her and give her props for doing this, because it takes a lot of courage to come on a show like this for over an hour without commercial breaks and talk about any topics that come up. This is not easy to do. It's hot under these lights. There's cameras here. Judah's very approachable, though. I think he's very easygoing.
Judah was very nice to greet me when I came.
Very easygoing guy, Judah would come. All right, show is yours. Anywhere you want to go.
I just really want to urge people to keep track of what's going on in the district, whether you have children in the schools or not. In fact, people who have kids who already graduated can be some of the most helpful people in this fight. So, school board meeting tomorrow, either go to it in person. That would be amazing if we could get a lot of people to go to the school board meeting. Or live stream it, comment on things, and email your school board members. They are dying to hear from you with your concerns.
Well said. You crushed it. Even better than the first time. I swear. It is fun. That's the show, guys. I'll close with this. The talk show tomorrow has Kelly Jackson. She is a businesswoman. 600 plus team members under her purview. She has a daughter in private school and a daughter in public school. Her daughter in private school has been to 2 different private schools. Her daughter in public school is a high-achieving public schooler that legitimately skipped a grade. That's how high achieving. So we're going to have firsthand perspective from a mom in the trenches in Kelly Jackson on tomorrow's program. On Friday's show, Judah 3-shot. Why don't we go to a 3-shot here? On Friday's show, we have the author of a fantastic letter, Mr. Bill.
Let me look it up again. I think it's Here we
this
go.
Poor guy.
Munkachi.
Yeah. I can't wait for him
I think Munkachi.
Can't wait for him on the program. He's now a software developer. The whole point of this program, guys, is to have real conversation about real topics in this community. It's topics that may make people uncomfortable, but that's just the nature of life. Life is not sunshine and rainbows, especially when it comes to our children. We legitimately have to make tough decisions every day with our kids. Our pride and joys. We are going through that right now, my wife and I, where to put our little guy. And we are not deep-pocketed individuals. So tuition is legitimately something we're mindful of, but it's a decision we're making because we love our kids so much and so dearly. So thank you, Dr. Bryce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judah. That's the talk show, and we closed on time. The I Love CVille Show, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 12:30. Take care.
Thanks.
Amazing. He's going to tell us when the mics are off.
Thank you, Judah.